So we continue this conversation, and I will quote the famous philosopher Mouse from Devil in a Blue Dress, which is, when left in the room with somebody that he was supposed to guard, he comes back, Denzel Washington comes back and realizes that Mouse has killed the man. And Mouse asked Denzel the question, if you didn't want me to kill him, what'd you leave him here for? And Joe, I'll ask you the question this way. We were talking about, when do we get angry as black folk? And if 2020 is not enough to make us angry, what will? I guess the question that maybe should be asked is, without Martin, without Malcolm being combined, there probably wouldn't have been the progress in the civil rights movement. Why is it that we always have to be angry in order to get something achieved?
Well, I mean, first, I just want to recognize what just happened here. We've got black folks talking and getting along, and I think that there can be more of that in our public discourse, because it seems a lot of times we just get together and yell at each other. But I think also, to that point, let's be very clear, this is not a new problem. There were plenty of people who, at times where Malcolm X was not that fond of Dr. King. There were plenty of times when Stokely Carmichael was not that fond of other members of the SC of SNCC or other members of the Southern Christian leadership. So there was always been this divide, this notion of division within the movement for justice for black people. But we've always understood that we need both internal and external forces that can come together to galvanize a movement to achieve the outcomes that black people deserve. And so, to my colleague's point, yes, we do need more people in the Republican Party showing up for those meetings, because unequivocally, we have the opportunity to say that when you have both parties that are not only responsive to the needs of black people, but also accountable to the promises that they make, that is when progress starts to accelerate. And so I think if there's any hope that we have for moving forward, where you see the slight uptick in African-American, or a big uptick in African-American men voting Republican, for better or for worse. You see the precipitous increase when you talk about Latinos who are voting Republican and things of that nature. I think there is an opportunity, whether you agree with the implementation of the policies or not, to have a two-party system that works for all people again, if we are more strategic in how we engage in our politics.
And so, Joe, let me push back. Do you still have a party?
Of course. I think, look, here's the big truth. I think that we have lost the fundamental understanding of what a party is. And we've had this conversation before, where I said, look, I'm a member of the Republican Party because I believe in conservatism, and the Republican Party is where people who believe in conservatism can go to leverage power. It is not a birthday party. It is not a block party. It is a political party. I am present to leverage power. I am not there for the open bar. And I think that the problem is that we have a lot of people who engage in politics and act as if somehow they're supposed to be there to have fun and make friends. I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make sure that the outcomes that I want to see in my lifetime for me, myself, and mine, and the children I hope to have one day, can be achieved. And I think that when we start looking at our politics with that type of almost a dispassionate view, we can start to get a lot of stuff more done. I've had the conversation before. There's a problem when you call Joe Biden your uncle. There's a problem when you call Maxine Waters your auntie, because you can't fire your auntie, you can't fire your uncle, and you can't hold them accountable. They just got to show up at the store and keep getting the paycheck, because that's what you do with family. You take care of them. And so on some basic level, we can love these people who represent us, who speak to our interests, upon whose shoulders we stand. But at some point, there has to be a willingness to hold them accountable. And that accountability must be reserved at the highest level for those who we have entrusted to secure the outcomes that we have yet to see in this nation.
Dr. Dibinga, he's talking about your aunt, he's talking about your uncle.
Everyone's auntie and uncle.
I believe that it's one thing to call somebody my auntie, and another thing to call somebody the second coming of Jesus, or the anointed one, which is what many people within the Republican/conservative movement have looked at with Trump, despite his comments about what he's done with women's private parts, and despite a lot of his racism and his other ideas. You have some of the biggest ministers within the conservative movement look at him as the second coming, and all of these biblical references. And hey, we call people aunties and uncles because in our culture, we respect our elders, and we make places for them. Even when they may lose a little bit of sight or a little bit of knowledge, we still figure out ways to respect them while we groom the next generation of leadership who's going to come after them. But luckily, people like Auntie Maxine are still going strong. And, you know, they're going to continue to be our aunts. But it's like when Obama was running, he said, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. And people are in the Republican Party are comparing Trump to everything godlike, which is a step higher than just saying somebody might be your auntie, uncle, or cousin.
Well,
let me just say, I can't speak for nobody else's family. But in a Mississippi farm family, if auntie or uncle's not doing their work, we ain't gonna let you starve, but you ain't staying on this farm. So regardless of what you call them, all politicians should be responsible for their actions. They should be responsive to their constituents. And I don't care whether you want to call them auntie, uncle, the first black president when you clearly ain't black. You need to be responsible. And I don't care what your fans call you. If you're not doing your job, you gotta go.
True.
When we come back, what the memorials to 2020 will look like. Stay with us.